Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Lake Erie Regional Grape Program podcast. I'm Jennifer Phillips Russo, the Viticulture Extension Specialist, and I'm here today with Kevin Martin, our Business Management Specialist, to talk about minimum wage. As of 2020, we're in December right now, so as of 2021, easy for me to say, there's going to be some changes, and he's going to let you know about that.
Yeah, so first of all, for Pennsylvania, there are no changes. There has been no change in federal minimum wage law or in Pennsylvania. There has been some motion by Pennsylvania, particularly from the governor's office for a number of years to raise minimum wage. But that being said, it hasn't happened because there hasn't really been political will to actually change it. And even if they did, there's been no discussion about changing the rules that allow agriculture to be exempt from minimum wage and overtime rules, all the things that have pretty much been universally enjoyed in agriculture for a number of years. Whereas in New York, all of that changed and most of those exemptions were lost. So now we are subject not only to minimum wage, but things like overtime on the New York side of things. But specifically this podcast, I just wanted to take a moment to remind you that it is another year. So in New York State, with another year comes another hike in the minimum wage. The increases started back in 2015. So for 2020, the minimum wage for most of the year was $11.80. And on the last day of the year, it will increase to $12.50. So for a lot of grape growers, that's probably not a problem because we don't necessarily pay minimum wage, but just so you know, technically speaking, the minimum wage changes on 12/31, not 1/1. This is the last of the formally scheduled statutory increases in minimum wage. So what we're going to watch for going forward in 2022 is going to be federal increases in minimum wage, which are going to be possible, but somewhat unlikely. But there's going to be the possibility of federal increases in minimum wage that may affect Pennsylvania. In New York right now, the director of the Division of Budget will announce minimum wage increases on or before October 1st. So this would be October 1st of 2021. So we know we're going to 12.50 next year. We don't know what it will be in New York the year after that. But the director of the Division of Budget does have the authority to continue to increase minimum wage in the remainder of New York State. So that 12.50 can go all the way up to 15.
I was just going to ask that. I thought I heard 15
Yeah, there's been a lot of pressure on wages in New York State because the marketing for the minimum wage increase was let's get it to $15. So it's been in New York City, it's been $15 since 2018. For small employers, it's been $15 in New York City since 2019. Long Island and Westchester will go to $15 next year. But the rest of New York State is at $12.50. So that's unexpected to a lot of people because that $12.50 figure isn't really what's advertised, even though that's what affects most people. So we see a lot of people certainly above $12.50, maybe still less than 15 for now. But the plan was eventually to get everybody to $15. They're going to use economic indexes like the Consumer Price Index. So those indices will justify wage increases above the $12.50. So theoretically, those increases might be pretty small for a while. Because they think they might be pretty small, there is some movement to change that and get it to $15 legislatively faster, but nothing has passed. That will be in the New York State budget this year if it does happen. So that's another thing to watch to see if we get to 15 faster than planned. But I really
When does all of that happen? I'm not a business management specialist.
So the budget will happen around April, assuming it's on time. So we'll know that well in advance. The $12.50, like I said, we know we're good with that. That's definitely what the wage is going to be for the duration of 2021. If nothing changes legislatively, there will be an announcement October 1st to determine what that wage is going to be for 2022. And it might be $13, it might be $12.75. It might be a very modest I would expect a modest increase the way the law is written, but I guess we'll see based on sort of political pressure if it really is modest or if it continues to be pretty robust. So, we've gone up about 20% in the last few years. So it hasn't really been modest. It's been, I think the philosophy has been to catch up because there were a number of years without increases. So that's where we're at. It's definitely putting pressure on wages for grape growers. I think the obvious solution is to shift away from labor and invest in other types of capital that allow you to save labor costs. That's been a trend that started probably in 1980 or before 1960, but we just need to continue down that path with reducing labor costs. If I look at something as an investment and I say, hey, I can invest in this capital and it's going to cost me $10,000 and save $10,000 in labor, I'm going to do that every time, even though it looks like I'm not going to save money, because we all know that the cost of labor is going to go up and typically going to go up faster than we anticipate. And you don't have to manage machines, you have to manage people. So there's a lot of costs involved in labor that are not necessarily well accounted for. So I would urge growers to avoid it when they can. And obviously that also allows you to free up, your time and your management and even your money, if you're saving some of it, to treat the workers that you do need in a way that allows you to keep them and give them the expertise and encourage them to stay with you, because we're never going to get the cost of labor down to nothing. And
Right.
as we invest in capital that saves us in labor, that the employees that we do have become more important and typically become more skilled. So
So
it is what it is.
maybe this year with the CFAP 2 program, if people are taking advantage of that and getting that money, because it's off of last year, correct? Maybe they have some extra funds to look into getting some of these labor saving.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of growers with the price of grapes where they are and the federal payments where they are, considering investments in equipment. Typically speaking, that would be the first place I would go with those investments. I would say at this point, depending on what your strategy has been for the last decade, it does make sense at some point to just reinvest in depreciated equipment. So a lot of times, I'm hesitant to say that because a lot of time there's a mentality in agriculture to replace equipment too quickly. But for growers that have really been putting off equipment replacement, that may need to be the first and most efficient priority, because we had a period with low prices where equipment wasn't being replaced. And if that's the situation you're in, then that's the situation you're in. And then the next strategy after that would be to save on labor.
Right. Well, thank you for coming in today.
Yep. I'll be around and available until the end of the year. We do have our Christmas holiday, our winter holiday. So we'll probably not be around so much that last week, but then I'll be back in February after that. So it's good to be back here and there and try to keep up with things. Just want to make sure before I disappear, if I disappear. Because I am working halftime, so I don't know how many podcasts we're going to do between now and the end of the year.
Right.
Aware that your payroll is going to need another update if you're in New York, the end of the year.
Sorry, I keep muting because there's a lot of banging going outside in my window. But I thought it was a good chance to at least talk about it, and maybe we can do that again the next time. Before is that the offices will be closed December 24th. And reopening January 4th to 2021. So that is what he was speaking about, the winter break there. So that entire last week, we won't be there. And I hope you guys are all enjoying with your families during that time as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, some hammers on Jennifer's side and some singing, I think, on the background.
No, yours is much better than mine. Okay, everybody, have a great week. Thank you very much. Please keep in mind that we are still available for you to call us, to email us, and we can get you the information that you want. We'll continue to do podcasts when we can. And we also have our crop updates going out there. So
thanks a lot, everybody.
Take care.
We'll see you.